Okay, this is going to be really fun. I want to review the appearance from this morning. I appeared on Piers Morgan Uncensored for one of those debate panels, and it got pretty heated, a little out of control at moments, some questionable moderating by Piers, but I want to show you the different key spots. It was, at certain points, it would go really long because there's 4 people completely unrelated to any points that I made, so I'll try to keep it, just for the sake of time, to when I was engaging with someone on a topic. And first, that is on the subject of Trump visiting McDonald's. Piers Morgan and the people on the panel are Amicia Cross, who's a Democratic strategist, so that's the person right next to me, and then Larry Elder, who was the gubernatorial candidate in California, ran against Gavin Newsom, then presidential candidate, and Dave Rubin, who's a right-wing political commentator. So Dave Rubin, Larry Elder, and Piers Morgan all thought Trump's visit to McDonald's was just the best thing since sliced bread, or since French fries, maybe more aptly put. And you'll see how I respond to those points.
Fries in a McDonald's when he's never been seen cooking a thing in his entire life, and then serving it to punters as they turn up in cars. If you can't crack a smile and feel what Kamala would just...
Oh, by the way, please do remember to click the subscribe button if you haven't already. We are so close. We can taste it to 1 million subscribers. If you want to contribute to that, you can do so. Thank you to all of you who are already subscribed.
Describe as the joy of that moment. There's something very humorous about you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's MAGA that keeps getting upset.
I'm thankful that McDonald's hires felons, because they do that in reality as well.
Okay, let me bring in Luke. You want to get him?
Yeah. Well, I will say that MAGA has been repeatedly expressing that they're upset that Kamala is having these fun moments. Oh, she's laughing weird, or stop dancing, there's serious problems. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there, but I will say this McDonald's thing is the perfect example of how Trump gets away with what he does, because a bunch of people in the media play right into what he's doing, which I agree, a fun little photo op at McDonald's. A lot of people are going to find that likable, ignoring the actual substance, which is he gets asked about the minimum wage. He can't answer it because on policy, he's a failure. So he has to rely on these sorts of stunts to get people to like him. And the media finds it so fascinating, so they forget days before the election what really matters.
But to be clear, you did find this. Just to be clear, you just said you found him likable.
I don't find him super likable, but I understand why a photo shoot like this appeals to people. That's exactly what he's trying to do. Distract from the fact that days before an election, he's promising to go after his political enemies with this enemies from within sort of comment. Distract from the fact that he's the most anti-democratic presidential candidate we've seen in
let me bring in
American politics. Distract from the fact that hundreds of economists are saying that Trump's plan would harm the economy.
Okay, let me bring in Larry. Larry, your response to this.
Well, you're talking to somebody whose father here used to clean toilets for a living.
Okay, I'm going to admit this might be a really long segment because there's so much I want to show you from it. But first, let me respond to that part. You heard the point. Just to reiterate it, the media just lets Trump play them like a fiddle. Really? We're going to have a debate over, was his appearance really awesome or really, really awesome? How about we talk about what these sorts of appearances are distracting from? Because, of course, if you like Trump, seeing him, make fries and hand them out and talk to people is going to be something that you're fond of. But I'm not going to allow him to demand the media respond to the narratives he wants to talk about when there's far more consequential things. And I think Piers Morgan really wants to portray himself to be, at least he said, as a nonpartisan journalist. I'm objective. I'm not a Republican, or siding with Republicans, siding with Trump. But you'll see throughout this debate, in sort of the framing of the questions, the responses from him to people's answers, it's unfortunate that he serves as the very archetype of what I'm talking about, which is the Piers Morgans of the world get played or are willing participants in being played by Trump to distract with stunts like that one from his economic proposals and the weakness of those based on economists and Goldman Sachs and Moody's, and his anti-democratic record and his threats against the media, his threats against his political opponents. And really, we're going to talk about how well he made fries. No, I'm not gonna play along with that. Let's watch a little bit more of this part, then we'll move on to a different topic.
nickels and dimes and started what? A cafe where he sold hamburgers. So I was enjoying the moment. Donald Trump is relatable. He's likable. Regular people who eat at McDonald's liked him. And I think that's why people on the left are so upset. I do find it interesting, though, that Kamala Harris has gotten a pass for saying she's worked at McDonald's, and Donald Trump is being slammed for doubting it. I saw a headline that said, Donald Trump, without evidence, says no.
And then this part goes on for a super long time. I'll summarize it as MAGA is very aggressively asserting that she never worked at McDonald's. I haven't seen any evidence to refute it, but they're saying they haven't seen evidence that she has. And it's just sort of like, what? Really? I guess she could go and find the thing, but it feels a little weird to let Trump randomly blurt out, she's probably lying about McDonald's. And then everyone goes, okay, cool. Well, we're just going to assume she's probably lying until she proves it. How about we let Trump demonstrate what brought to his attention that it's a lie? Because all we can tell is that she did work there. Then on this next topic, on the Kamala Harris Fox News interview, which I've expressed to all of you, I thought went very, very well. Let's see how this discussion went.
Well, I agree with her. The point was for her to go on Fox News, stand up, show she wasn't afraid, show she had the stones to go to Fox News. The problem is much more fundamental. Are you better off now than you were 3.5, 4 years ago? The average family of four is spending $1,200 a month more for the same goods and services as that family spent 3.5, 4 years ago. We're paying 50% more for gas than we were 3.5, 4 years ago. That's the problem, and that is why I believe she's going to lose.
Okay, Luke, you're shaking your head there. Why?
Yeah. What is this bizarre thing that MAGA is trying to force onto Americans, this collective amnesia? We were in the middle of the pandemic 4 years ago. Yes, we're better off. And the very problems that people will cite to argue against the economic success of Biden-Harris are the numbers that are a direct outcome. Be just a little bit honest for a moment, Dave and Larry. Are a direct outcome of pandemic conditions.
A little bit honest.
If you can't accept that, if you can't accept that Trump was making deals with Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut oil production, that caused the spike going into Biden-Harris. If you can't accept that Trump gave to Biden a crime spike, an economic collapse, a public health disaster, then you're not critically engaging with the last few years. So yes, we're better off because we got out of a crisis better than any other. Well, just listen, Dave. Just listen.
Okay, Dave Rubin.
We came out of a crisis.
All right, Luke, let Dave respond to that.
Well, there's so much there. I mean, first off, it was the Democrats, once Biden took over, who made the pandemic situation much, much, much worse with mandates and forcing people out of work and forcing nurses out of work and everything else. But let's put that aside because that's years ago. How about we just deal with the last, say, 2 years, where they printed a relentless amount of money. And if you know anything about economics, if you ever did Economics 101 in college, if you print money, then it is going to cause inflation. Your dollar will be worth less. And that's why every single person watching this in the United States of America knows that when they walk into whatever grocery store they go to, whether it's to buy a dozen eggs or it's a pound of beef or bread, it is significantly higher. And that is not, and Kamala's answer for that.
So as I've told you before, we have to be mindful of sort of YouTube rules. So part of why you might be thinking, why are you doing split screen sometimes? Just let me see the full thing. We kind of need to switch off so that it's not just grabbing their content, full screening it, and then not adding enough differentiations, there we go, to the content we're doing. And so let me jump in here for a second, because it's a long clip, to discuss what you know I'm going to throw in. I'm curious because the audience has heard me make these arguments before. This group of folks hasn't, but you can probably predict the points that Dave Rubin just made. What am I probably going to jump in and say? All right, now let's go.
Inflationary cost of anybody in the developed world.
She wants more governmental control over the economy.
No, she wants price gouging to end.
Quickly.
Over your lives.
Quickly, just please answer this for me then. Why is it that our economy, just by the objective metrics we use to measure economic performance, came out of the pandemic under Biden-Harris way stronger than our wealthy economy counterparts, and then inflation, we got it down way faster? This was a global phenomenon because of a global crisis that Trump mismanaged, thus exacerbated. And you exploit the painful facts of that moment. You exploit the painful facts of that moment for political purposes When even on your point about printing money, sure, absolutely the case that that'll cause inflation or contribute to it. So then what do you say about as Trump was leaving office, him dumping, he added twice that of Biden to the debt, even if you exclude the pandemic, by the way, but especially including it. And you want to push it all into Biden Harris. You want to exclude from Trump's record the pandemic era, but include it.
But look, here's the problem.
So you knew that's what I was going to say if you watched so regularly, because it's the truth. I don't know what Dave Rubin was referencing when he said, I didn't hear that in my headphone. It gets sort of hectic, especially while I'm talking, then hearing what people are saying. But he was, I'm pretty sure I heard him say, well, none of that's true. So in reference to our economy coming out of the pandemic more effectively, inflation being brought down more quickly after the global phenomenon. And so then that's why I don't like assuming, I referenced them being dishonest at one moment. I don't like assuming dishonesty or bad faith, but I also don't like assuming, oh, you must just be less informed than me, right? Because that feels a little pretentious. But if Dave Rubin is confidently saying, or if Piers Morgan or Larry Elder don't know that those economic data points are accurate, then are they just completely not curious about why it is that our economy has performed as it has, or the details of how it performed, or how the rest of the world performed? Are they not interested in really seeing, when I say Biden's to blame for inflation, do I have anything to back that up other than just inflation spiked while he was president because he inherited this crisis? And at one point, I'll play a little bit more of this, you'll see it. I was trying to say, yeah, we can blame, sure, we want to blame Biden, to use a term, for some of the inflation because of recovery efforts, just like how you would blame Trump because on his way out, and then, as obviously happens with fiscal policy, if you dump money into the economy, which I don't even blame Trump for all of it, even though there was a lot of fraud with what he was doing, but in a general sense, you're trying to get out of economic disaster, you're going to end up spending a lot of money to get out of it, and then that can trigger inflation, as well as corporate price gouging, as well as the supply chain problems that came with the pandemic. And I referenced Trump making that deal with Saudi Arabia and Russia to cut oil production, to stabilize the oil industry. That had an impact. So there's all these things, and I'm willing to look at where Biden Harris's policies contributed to things. In some way, I'm saying inflation was a global phenomenon, so it's tough to say it must have been this or this that they by themselves did. It had to be a broader context than that. And also, we can really easily just line up each country and compare how they came out of the pandemic, and then how quickly they got that inflation down, how effectively they got the inflation down. And the United States did it better. So you can't make an argument that they messed everything up and they did it worse. It was going to be a painful moment for sure because of the pandemic. And it wasn't helped by how badly Trump was mismanaging it and what he handed to them. But then, as you're going to see here, what was upsetting and why you don't see me doing these debates a ton is sometimes it just feels like no one's that curious to hear the points that are being made. Because even Piers, at so many moments, just disregarded the core point and then referenced something different. And I wish, if they weren't dishonest actors, whether they are or aren't, I won't weigh on at this moment, Rubin and Elder, why wouldn't they engage with that? I guess they did by saying it's all a lie, which is not true. So Biden Harris is ridiculous.
Look, here's the problem. I'm not disputing some of what you said there. What I would dispute, though, is you're not really countering. Well, you're not really countering what Dave's central point is, which is most Americans, if not all Americans, if they think about what their weekly shop costs them today and compare it to the first few weeks, months of the Biden-Harris administration, it is indisputably a lot more expensive. And in the end, I think if they lose the election, if Kamala Harris doesn't win and Trump wins, I suspect, as always, it will be that economic reality, which is not to say the American economy is not performing well compared to many other countries. It is. You are the #1 superpower in the world. But it doesn't change the fact that the cost of living for most Americans has gone through the roof in the last 3.5 years. It just has.
Totally, which is why it's a crying shame that people like Larry and people like Dave choose to mislead people about the cause of that, because they won't even engage with the point I just made about the global phenomenon.
Well, you don't want to put any blame onto your side. and that's fine.
Sure,
but they've
put some
been in
blame
charge.
as long as we're
but
put
your
some
side have
blame,
been
as
in
long
charge.
as we're considering the full
You
context
can't
of
keep
it.
blaming Trump for everything that happens.
Where's the
It's
blame
not
for
blaming
corporate
Trump.
greed
It's
in the private
considering
sector?
And then it goes crazy and everyone jumps in, so I don't get to make the point. And again, you guys, most of you know this, but maybe some Piers viewers were interested in what they saw. Some conservatives or liberal curious folks, welcome, and are coming to see more. And so it's important to point out, I don't know, I guess that talking point works. Well, Biden and Harris were in power. I'm not saying that you don't also judge their performance handling problems that were handed to them, but you just, do they know what I was so curious during that panel, which is why I did this exact same gesture with my hands. I'm wondering if they're hearing me and going, that talking point I don't want to address because it's a little bit damaging to my whole worldview, or if they actually are thinking that what I'm saying is irrational, that we should consider what Biden Harris inherited, just like how we should consider what Trump inherited, which was a much better situation, a strong economy, which is why him taking credit for metrics that were so expected post-Obama is silly. It's not to say, oh, I'm just always going to find a... It's actually thoughtfully engaging with the fact that time doesn't begin or end when a president, when presidents switch out, when a different president takes over. And so looking at the studies that have indicated mismanaging of the pandemic under Trump contributed to hundreds of thousands of more deaths. I'm not pulling this out of nowhere that he mismanaged just because I don't like him. And then same thing, the analyses we can point to looking at the strong economic performance that was way better than anyone expected. The people like Larry Elder and Dave Rubin, and maybe Piers, were all predicting recessions right when Biden Harris got in office. Oh, they're mismanaging it so badly, we're going to see a recession. And the opposite happened. We had a really strong period of economic growth. So I really am curious if I could jump into their brain, if they're hearing what I'm saying, resonating with it, but then having to dispel addressing it for political reasons, or if they actually don't understand what I'm saying and think I'm just trying to say anything bad that happened under Biden Harris is because of Trump.
Pulled on Biden is so hypocritical.
Oh, I should note, this is about Kamala Harris's campaign putting attention on Trump's age now.
I get politics is all about.
Well, let me play. Okay,
this one is off the charts.
Hang on, Luke. Hang on. I want to play a test here. I want to play a mashup of Trump's best gags from the Al Smith Catholic dinner night. But I want Amisha and Luke to look at me, and I want you to try and avoid laughing, right? Which is what all Democrats have been trying to do. So you're not allowed to laugh, all right? Let's watch this.
Deal.
It's a true pleasure to be with you this evening. Amazing pleasure. And these days, it's really a pleasure anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance. I didn't like Biden very much, and now I like him quite a bit. And when we hopefully win, dispose of her, I like her a lot, but right now I can't stand her. Believe me, my normal crowd is younger, has a lot more energy, but you have certain advantages too, like cash, lots of cash. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband Doug anywhere near the nannies. Just keep them away. That's a nasty one. Hey, you think this is easy standing up here and doing this? In front of half a room that hates my guts and the other half loves me?
Well, I mean,
before you watch the reaction, I think they all thought, you'll hear Piers thinking I was like holding in laughter about Trump. I'd never been a part of a weirder interview decision in my entire life. To be sitting on a panel and for them to go, because over here's the monitor, and I was just looking at the camera, and then out of the corner of my eye, I could see that I was popping back up on screen. I was thinking, that's weird. I thought they were playing a clip. I thought this was a moment. You saw me scratching my ear. I thought this was a moment where I could sort of readjust, drink some water. And I look over and see that my face is back up split screen with Trump. And me realizing that's what they were doing is what made me laugh. That it was such an interesting content choice. But you'll see, I don't think I gave the answer Piers was necessarily expecting, but really, really funny and really strange. We're going to put your faces up to see if you try not to laugh challenge.
Misha, you did better than Luke. Luke, you were trembling there. The bottom lip was going. You couldn't stop yourself. How can you not laugh at that stuff? It's a roast. It's supposed to be a funny roast.
I got you. Wait, I got you. What I was smiling about is I wasn't ready to see on the monitor that you were going to put this up there. So that's funny. But let me clarify. People get in this argument of, does Trump have charisma? Is he funny? Obviously, that's how he built the cult that he built. I'm not concerned with the humor scale of a president. I want someone with character. So I agree. Sometimes he says stuff and I laugh. Sometimes it's because it's so incoherent and embarrassing that I'm laughing at him. But sometimes he says a joke like some of them there and they're perfectly fine. But that's not what determines a president. And he can both be sort of a caricature and sort of silly while also, last time he was president, refusing to leave office until his illegal schemes failed. Okay. Last time he was president, mismanaging a global crisis. Okay, let me go back. And I'll play from there. Every time. So one thing I don't like is when, I know why politicians sometimes have to do this, especially me not being a politician. I don't like having to, just for the sake of being a good debater, ignoring the question and just making a point, right? Well, Trump is blah, blah. And so when Piers asks questions, Piers mostly, if Dave jumps in and says, I have a question for you, I'm less interested in that. But I want to answer it first. So I tried, you could hear me talking quickly. I tried to answer first the question, which is, yeah, Trump sometimes acts silly and he's still dangerous. And right as I was getting to, and just because you're saying he's silly, that doesn't mean we should not take seriously. Right as I start that list, Piers goes, all right. No, let me say it. Refusing to leave office until his illegal schemes failed. Okay. Last time he was president, mismanaging a global crisis. So can we talk about the substance while I'll acknowledge we don't have to ignore there are moments, mostly because we're laughing at him, where he's inducing laughter.
Yeah, I mean, Larry, I thought that Dave hit onto a really smart thing about this campaign, which is Trump has done a lot of this with very unconventional media, a lot of young podcasts, a lot of stuff you would never expect a presidential candidate to go on. He's been devoting a lot of time to this. And I know why, because they have millions and millions of younger followers. And if he can galvanize them to come out and vote, he's going to win.
That's right. And let me suggest that the reason Kamala Harris did not go to the dinner is because when you call somebody a fascist and a Nottler and a Hitler and a threat to our republic, then you sit back and break bread and crack jokes with him. It suggests that you really weren't serious when you said all those mean, nasty things about him. And I think it undermined her argument. That's why I believe she didn't show up. He sits there, he makes fun with Chuck Schumer, talked to Chuck Schumer before.
Okay, so you hear that point. I did point out, wait, you're saying Harris didn't go because if she went, it underlined the hypocrisy of saying Trump's a threat to democracy while being friendly with him at the dinner. But she didn't go, first of all. And second of all, Trump went and was all friendly with Chuck Schumer. So are you saying he then is guilty of that? He's guilty of saying we're fascists, because that's what he says, and we're going to end the country? But then being super friendly because it's all just political rhetoric. Then I was asked, am I panicking about the election?
I am panicking about the state of these swing states.
He was saying if he were a Democrat, he would say that.
Well, my take at the moment, Piers, you know my political evolution well. I'm by no means a traditional conservative or even traditional Republican. I wasn't a Republican most of my life. I am since I moved here to Florida.
Okay, first, I played a little earlier. I want you to see Ruben's point, and then we'll get to Piers asking about me panicking. But the reason I roll my eyes there is because Ruben's whole career has been, I'm shifting. I'm really far left. Now I'm a centrist liberal. Now I'm centrist, and now I'm on the right. And that gives me more credibility. So I was just sort of like, oh my gosh. It feels a little grifty because he sort of kept shifting until he found something that worked for him, money-wise. But that was the eye roll. I get that's a little petty for me to, but that's that. Hear his point. I might skip forward once he sort of goes on for a while. You'll get the gist of it because that's important to what I respond.
couple of years ago. But what's happening right now with Trump is that he has built a coalition around him with people that were Democrats. Robert F. Kennedy, the name is the standard bearer for the Democrat Party. Tulsi Gabbard, only a few years ago, running for president as a Democrat. Elon Musk, who was a Democrat his entire life. We're getting Hollywood celebrities and rappers, a whole group, and athletes, MMA guys, people who are apolitical, who are no, but it's not about that. It's that sort of dismissiveness that leads people to not liking lefties. What you're seeing right now is a whole bunch of people who love America. They love free speech. They love free enterprise. They love the founding of this country. And they're realizing that Trump now is the vehicle to save this country. It's either that or hyper control over your life in every which way by a woman.
Okay, now this is fun. Now, in your head, he brings up the founding of the country, maybe referencing founding documents, Constitution. What do you think I'm going to bring up here? To all of you who know me well, you know what's coming.
Who I would say is the first artificial intelligence candidate in that she has been programmed to say things and she will say whatever she's programmed to do. Trump is now showing that America can be wide and celebrated and wonderful and all of the things that made us the dream of the world over. It is so rare and precious what we have in America. And now Trump represents that restoration, which is why he's bringing together, I would say, the widest coalition I have ever seen in my entire life.
Listen, Luke. Well, Luke, hang on, Luke, whatever you think about, hang on, please. I'll come to all of you.
NATO was talking about NATO proofing themselves against Trump.
Wait your turn, please. Luke, I mean, what Dave just said is...
I'm for America. I'm not for NATO.
What Dave just said is correct in the sense he has got this strangely powerful cross-section of people who were Democrats who have now come round to Trump. I mean, Luke, right now, if I was a Democrat, I am panicking about the state of these swing state polls, and that's where all the action is going to be. Are you panicking?
They got Dick
I'm
Cheney
in a perpetual
now.
state of panic this entire time. But I will say, until election day is over, or however, whenever we get the result back, of course I'm going to be panicked because of the stakes of this election, even if she had a large lead in the polls. And so yes, for sure. But I'd want to make sure we contextualize who Trump is. Dave's talking about this Donald Trump that I'm really not familiar with, because I agree. Patriotism, loving America, being for America is super important, which is why I can't be a Republican, which is why hundreds of Republicans are coming out, prominent Republicans who worked in other Republican administrations, to say Kamala Harris is the patriotic candidate, given that Trump... Okay, I'm going to have to play a lot after this, because it sort of gets loud and you need to follow the thread of the argument. But because I just played a lot already, so that we can make sure this is YouTube compliant. One point I wish I'd emphasize a little bit more is it's so weird that you're saying one of the reasons Trump is actually a unifying candidate and something special is happening is because Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Elon Musk, and Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard was barely a Democrat, okay? She always was sort of, what's this? This is a strange way to represent being a Democrat. So, all right. You got me there. Elon Musk, a similar, he wasn't even... I don't see how that's showing the unifying of Trump's movement. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., similar thing. His conspiracy theorizing let him no other option, because we reject that. Even if you align on some policies, we don't need all that anti-vax stuff. So yeah, he got rejected, and then he went to the other group who would accept him. That's kind of an interesting way to think of it. But if that's proof that he's actually going to bring us united to a better future, Kamala has him beat tenfold in people of the other political ideology who have spent their life, actual lifelong members of that opposition party, the Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, etc., are supporting her. She has hundreds of Republicans prominent who served in the administrations of past Republicans coming out and saying, this is the person who will protect the Constitution. So if your point is that represents something meaningful, then you must like Kamala. But here it derails. Republican administrations say Kamala Harris is the patriotic candidate, given that Trump,
no, like I said last time, violated his oath of office. You thought he was the devil, and now you got Dick Cheney.
Come on, Dave. Dave, I would love, if you want to talk, I do have a question for you.
Is Dick Cheney a good guy or a bad guy? Is Dick Cheney a good guy or a bad guy?
I'm gonna finish my point, whether it's the last thing I do.
Dick Cheney, good guy or bad guy? Come on, you can do it.
Trump tried to get Pence, you remember, to reject the electoral count and make Trump president. Are you saying then otherwise you'd have to denounce Trump for trying to do that, that Kamala Harris could just reject Trump's certification, then I wouldn't have to worry about the election, right?
Well, no, I think Dave made a very good point, which is, do you think it was good for Kamala Harris?
No.
Hang on. Do you think it was good for, was it good for Kamala Harris that Dick Cheney endorsed her? Literally,
Congratulations, you guys
literally the most hated man to Democrats of the last 30 years.
No,
wide coalition.
Dick Cheney is not who I'm interested in terms of the endorsement. The Adam Kinzingers, the Liz Cheney, as much as I disagree with her, showing this is the party that understands number one principle has to be dedication to the Constitution. All right, Dave, please listen.
All right, let me bring in
No. Last point. I'm gonna finish this last point. I believe in the founding of our country and how we should abide by the principles laid out there, like our Constitution. Trump's the one who called for the termination of our Constitution. So Dave trying to act like he's the party of pro-American values is absurd. Well, a massive fraud of this type magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution, is what he posted on True Social. You can find the post. It's still up.
All right.
Person.
Okay, let me go to Larry.
That person's not the pro-American candidate.
Larry, who's going to win the election?
Okay, so you knew I was going to bring up the termination of the Constitution because that's the best way to test, first of all, if someone's informed. How did you not hear of that? Dave went, that's not true. He never called for that. Except for that time that he did, and the post is still up on his social media platform. I read it out there, and I bring it up so much because it seems so black and white, right? A presidential candidate shouldn't say we should terminate our Constitution. And as proof that some of the people who cover politics the most know the least. Like Dave Rubin acting like he didn't know that happened, or I guess, I don't know if Piers sort of went, I missed the response there, but they do this with, so now you love Dick Cheney? No, we're saying that, first of all, I'm even willing to say let's exclude Dick Cheney from the equation altogether, because I'm sort of, but instead include the hundreds of people in Republican administrations that I disagree with a bunch, but who are now saying, Trump's threat to democracy. Kamala Harris actually wants to uphold the Constitution. The Sarah Matthews, Cassidy Hutchinsons. Those people served Trump loyally and then saw the Mark Milley's, Mark Espers, his defense secretaries, coming out and saying, don't let him anywhere close to the White House again. That is a much more extensive bench of supporters of Kamala's that are Republicans than what Trump has. And then they laugh it off. And Dave Rubin said, we need a laugh track for Luke. Why? I don't think it's funny that Trump said, let's terminate the Constitution. That's not that funny. And then they never engage with it. I will say, again, with love, Piers, yikes, the moderating. At all those points, isn't that the moment to go, wait, that's like a big thing. Let's see if that's true. Oh, it is. Dave, you're wrong. I don't know. Or ask a question about it, but then we just jump every time when there was a strong point to a different topic. A little irritating, but I had a bunch of fun with it. And I'd honestly like to do more because if I can accept they're probably not going to listen that much, then I can at least just make some solid points. Hope that I appeal to some of the conservatives in Piers Morgan's audience and have a little fun with it. Let me know what you thought. Is it worth it? Is it worth the effort just to be dogpiled unceremoniously? No. You can let me know in the comments. You can support the show. Get the bonus show by clicking the join button below.